What if I told you the very thing that keeps you from trying is the same thing you call courage? The fear of failure isn't just a feeling, it's a silent lockdown that can freeze any dream in its tracks. In the next 10 minutes, we'll uncover exactly why your brain hits the pause button and, most importantly, how to hit play again. Ready to break the chain? Let's dive in. I still remember the day I watched an opportunity slip away because I was too scared to send that email. It felt like a tiny stone that turned into a mountain the moment I imagined the possible rejection. Fear of failure, or FOF, is a universal evolutionary response. But in modern life, it often becomes paralysis. When we let it dictate our choices, we stall careers, abandon passions, and live with chronic stress. In this video, we'll first explore what fear of failure really is and where it lives in our brains. Then we'll see how it turns into a mental freeze, understand the hidden costs of staying stuck, and finally learn practical tools to break the cycle. By the end, you'll have a clear aha moment that can shift your mindset from stuck to unstoppable. First, let's understand what fear of failure really is and where it lives in our brains. Fear of failure is a cognitive emotional pattern that mixes the dread of negative evaluation with the fear of losing self-worth. In the brain, the amygdala acts as the alarm system, flashing red whenever it senses a threat, while the prefrontal cortex tries to weigh the options and plan a response. In our ancestors, that alarm kept them from dangerous predators, but today it misfires when the threat is a presentation, a job interview, or a blank canvas. Perfectionism, past criticism, cultural pressure, and even scrolling through polished social media feeds can all light that alarm. Imagine a student who can't submit a paper because a single grade feels like a verdict on their intelligence. That tiny moment of doubt triggers the same circuitry that once helped our ancestors avoid a lion's claw. When that alarm goes off, the mind often goes into analysis paralysis. We start asking endless what-ifs, building mental roadblocks that feel more solid than a brick wall. Anxiety spikes, self-doubt loops, and we start avoiding the very thing that could bring growth. Procrastination becomes a refuge, overplanning a false sense of control, and self-sabotage a way to protect ourselves from the imagined disappointment. The paradox is that the more we wait, the more we guarantee the very failure we fear. Think of a budding entrepreneur who keeps postponing a product launch. Each delay pushes the market window farther away, turning a potential success into an inevitable loss. Staying stuck comes with a heavy price: missed income, lost networks, and the lingering regret of what could have been are the obvious costs. Beneath that, chronic stress hormones keep the body in a state of alert, disrupting sleep and draining energy. Relationships suffer when we hide our aspirations or project negativity onto loved ones. A recent poll showed that 58% of adults say fear of failure stops them from pursuing a new skill. Yet, what if the very thing that holds you back also holds the key to unlocking your next breakthrough? Now that we see how fear builds the wall, we can start to chip away at it. The first shift is to reframe failure as data, not a verdict. Treat each setback as feedback, a point on a map that tells you where to turn next. The next tool is the micro-commit method. Break any goal into a 5-minute action that feels safe enough for the brain to approve. Exposure rehearsal helps to practice the feared scenario in low-stakes environments until the alarm loses its grip. Pair these with a simple self-compassion phrase, "I'm learning, not failing," to quiet the inner critic. And finally, share those micro-goals with an accountability partner who can nudge you forward when the urge to retreat rises. If this is resonating with you, smash that like button and tell me in the comments what fear you're ready to face. So let's take those ideas a step further and turn them into a daily rhythm that rewires the brain's alarm system. First, set a tiny intention each morning, something you can finish before the coffee gets cold. It could be as simple as opening a document, sketching a single line, or recording a 30-second voice note about the project you've been avoiding. When you follow through, even on that minuscule scale, the brain logs a success, and the fear circuitry loses some of its grip. Over time, those tiny victories stack up, creating a feedback loop that tells the amygdala, "Hey, this isn't a threat, it's manageable." Next, Give yourself permission to fail publicly, but in a controlled environment. Think of a low-stakes audition, a beta release to a handful of trusted friends, or a practice pitch in front of a mirror. The key is to expose yourself to the outcome you dread while keeping the stakes low enough that the cost of a misstep feels negligible. Each exposure dilutes the intensity of the anxiety response, and the brain learns that the worst-case scenario is survivable. After a few rounds, the same situation that once sparked a panic attack will start to feel like a routine check-in. Another powerful habit is to journal the what learned after every attempt, no matter the result. Write down the specific piece of information you gained, the new angle you discovered, or the skill you sharpened. By reframing the experience as data, you shift the narrative from "I failed" to "I collected evidence." This subtle linguistic tweak rewires the internal dialogue, making it harder for the inner critic to latch onto a single negative label. Now, let's talk about the role of self-compassion. When the inner voice starts its familiar chant of, "I'm not good enough," pause and replace it with a gentle reminder, "I'm a work in progress, and that's okay." You can even place a sticky note on your laptop screen with that phrase, so it catches your eye the moment you hesitate. Over time, this simple practice softens the harsh self-judgment that fuels the paralysis, allowing room for curiosity and experimentation. Accountability partners also deserve a deeper look. Choose someone who not only checks in on your progress, but also celebrates your micro-wins with genuine enthusiasm. When you share a 5-minute commitment and they respond with, "Great job, you just moved the needle," you receive external validation that reinforces the internal reward system. This social reinforcement can be the catalyst that pushes you past the point where fear tries to hijack your decision-making. If you're wondering how to keep this momentum going when the inevitable setbacks appear, remember that resilience is not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to bounce back. One technique is the pause, reframe, act loop. When you feel the familiar knot in your stomach, pause for a breath. Reframe the sensation as a signal that you're about to step out of your comfort zone, and then act on the smallest possible step. That 3-part rhythm creates a pause button for the fear response, giving you a moment to choose a deliberate action instead of defaulting to avoidance. Let's bring all these pieces together in a mental checklist you can run through before any daunting task. Tiny action, data, not verdict. Third, picture a low-stakes version of the scenario and run through it in your mind. Fourth, speak a self-compassion mantra silently. Finally, tell your accountability partner what you plan to do and set a specific deadline for that micro-commit. By following this sequence, you create a structured pathway that short-circuits the fear loop and guides you toward forward motion. You might be thinking, will this really work for me? The answer lies in consistency. The brain is a habit-forming organ. It rewards repeated patterns. The more often you practice these micro-steps, the more the fear response weakens and the more confidence builds. Think of it as training a muscle. Each repetition strengthens the neural pathways that support action and diminishes those that support avoidance. Before we close, I want to share a quick story that illustrates the power of these practices. A young writer I once coached was terrified of sharing her drafts because she feared harsh criticism. She started by committing to write a single paragraph each morning, then emailing that paragraph to a trusted friend for feedback. After a few weeks, the feedback became constructive, the anxiety faded, and she eventually completed a short story that got published in an online magazine. Her breakthrough didn't happen because she conquered fear in one dramatic leap. It happened because she chipped away at it, one tiny, intentional action at a time. Now, it's your turn to apply these steps to whatever goal is whispering at the back of your mind. Pick one of the tools we discussed, whether it's the micro-commit, exposure rehearsal, self-compassion phrase, or accountability partnership, and try it today. Notice how your body feels, what thoughts surface, and what small progress you make. Share that experience in the comments. I love hearing how these ideas play out in real life, and your story might inspire someone else who's stuck in the same loop. If you found value in this walkthrough, consider giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing for more deep dive explorations on mastering the mind. Your support helps the channel keep delivering content that turns psychological roadblocks into stepping stones. And remember, the next time fear tries to freeze you, you now have a toolbox full of practical tactics to melt that ice and keep moving forward. Keep experimenting, stay compassionate with yourself, and watch how each small victory reshapes the narrative of failure into a story of growth. What's the first micro step you'll take right after this video? Let me know below, and I'll see you in the next episode.